Hello YouTube, it's the Drunken Kobold here with a review of the Pathfinder 2e core rulebook. Pathfinder 2e was released in August 2019 after a year of extensive playtesting. I was actually involved in the playtest, and it was about that time that I conceived the idea for this channel and was going to dedicate it exclusively to 2e content since 5e had already been around for 4 years at that point, but for some reason it just never came to be then, and here we are now 2 years later finally doing it. Pathfinder was for me the best possible D&D-like RPG. It had the complexity and customizations of Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, but fixed a lot of the issues 3.5 brought to the game in terms of balance. It succeeded in being a worthy successor to 3.5 when 4th edition D&D could not. 5e D&D brought back a lot of the familiar elements of 3.5 and simplified them, making 5e great for beginners and veteran players alike, but Pathfinder always held a special place as possibly my favorite game. Now, as most know, Pathfinder was around as an independent game for nearly 10 years and existed as a whole for nearly 12, so you know it was doing something right. So when playtests for 2e came about in 2018, I was reluctant to accept that Paizo felt that they could improve essentially on perfection, but they did. So what did Pathfinder 2e do well gameplay-wise? Well, first let's start with simplicity. In this day and age, quick and simple is how you draw your crowds. People want instant satisfaction, and a system similar to 3.5 and Pathfinder 1e just did not deliver on that. They are a complex system with lots of illusion of choice. For those who play 5th edition D&D, the simplicity is familiar. Character building is a breeze and is completed in 10 easy steps. Next is customizability. Characters in Pathfinder 2e are, for all the simplicity the game offers, very customizable. This was always one of the strong points of 3.5 and Pathfinder 1e, and is to many where 5th edition did not succeed. The other thing is, unlike previous editions, 2e has meaningful customization. Lastly, Pathfinder 2e is flavorful. Not only are the customization options available to characters meaningful from a mechanical standpoint, they offer a lot in terms of roleplay opportunities and give more organic character advancement than the simple, you're now level 2, you're now level 3, that we've seen in the previous edition and in 5e. So what did Pathfinder 2e do well production-wise? One thing I've always loved Pathfinder for was the extensive core rulebook, good for both players and game masters. The game mastery guides, while the equivalent of the Dungeon Master's Guide, don't feel anywhere near as needed with how extensive and thorough the core rulebook is. It's also good monetary value. You can spend $100 for these and get your 2 books, or you can spend $60 for this. Take your pick. Pathfinder 2e book is also one of the cleanest layouts I've ever seen in an RPG book, and that combined with a well-done extensive glossary makes finding what you're looking for relatively easy. I would have liked to see a more developed table of contents so you could find key things such as your race and class pages easier without having to bookmark them and not have to look through the glossary, but regardless as is, it is acceptable. Lastly, I want to mention the character sheets. The character sheet explanation page makes the character sheet look way more complicated than it is. However, this is simply because Paizo did such a great job breaking down the character sheet so that it becomes super easy to use once familiar with it. Lots of features from 3.5 1e era return in Pathfinder 2e, and 2e does a great job of making them feel as simple as 5th edition. Oh, sorry for the last minute shout out to the art team for Pathfinder 2e. The art in your book is stunning on many levels, and this is by far the prettiest RPG book I've ever seen. What has changed? Well, races are no longer called races. They're now referred to as ancestries and backgrounds. Backgrounds made their debut in D&D 5e, but Pathfinder 2e took it a step further and made them more impactful to character creation, not only giving you skills, but affecting your ability modifiers as well, and not just your racial bonuses. I wanted to make a point of it here that when Wizards of the Coast suggested changing how racial bonuses were done this summer, I was an advocate of instead of making them racial bonuses, learn from 2e and give them to backgrounds, i.e. instead of giving orcs a +2 strength and +1 constitution, automatically, that they give the gladiator background the +2 strength and +1 constitution, or say give scholar +2 intelligence and +1 wisdom. I do like what Tasha's is doing and giving ability scores fluidity, so eventually I may not like Pathfinder 2e's method as much, however I do really enjoy it now. Second, Goblins are now a core race. In Pathfinder 1e, goblins were not playable until an expansion book and were featured heavily in the free RPG Day line of one-shots as a playable class. 5e also included them in Volo's Guide to Monsters as a playable monstrous race, as well as in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Well, Pathfinder 2e went up to all of you, and goblins joined the rank of core classes with classics like Dwarf, Human, Elf, and Halfling. Third, races have more ongoing impact on gameplay than granting you just a few starting abilities. Now they grant abilities called ancestral feats that make your ancestry more significant as you grow stronger. For any DBZ fans, remember when Vegeta said that whatever doesn't kill a Saiyan makes him stronger? Well, if you don't kill a dwarf, he eventually becomes stronger too as he learns more about his heritage and becomes more in touch with the abilities of his ancestors. There is a new class featured in Pathfinder 2e called the Alchemist. Alchemists use science to either make weapons or augment their abilities, going as far as to mutate themselves as they power up. Alchemists have a key ability score of intelligence and 2 secondary ability scores, constitution and dexterity. While talking about alchemists, this is the time to mention subclasses. Subclasses made their debut in 5th edition D&D and return in Pathfinder 2e, each subclass augmenting the core class as you gain levels. The subclasses of Alchemist are Chirurgeon, 2e's Pharmacist, Bombers, and Mutagenist. An old class to get an overhaul is the Paladin. Paladins are now referred to as champions as the core race, with Paladin now being a subclass. Alignment still matters more in 2e than it does in 5e, so here you still have to be good aligned. However, you can be on a wider spectrum of good than Pathfinder 1e, and your subclass is determined by your alignment. This is one of the few things that I don't like about Pathfinder 2e, and actually think D&D 5e got right. I personally feel like Paladins should be any alignment, as long as their alignment matches their god, and then they can take an oath corresponding to that alignment. Lastly, I want to talk about something that has changed that I'm not still 100% sold on, as if it's a change for the better, and that is the ability score generation. In the past, there have been several ways to generate ability scores, from rolling 3d6, 4d6 drop lowest, 6 plus 2d6, and the standard array. The method for generating scores in 2es follows a 4-step formula that influences your character's scores so that when your character is done, you have something that resembles standard array with a slight bit more variety between abilities. You can still roll for stats in the traditional way, however the guidance for this takes away an ability boost. Also, I find that rolling stats often leaves classes underpowered compared to optimal builds that use the core formula. However, can offer an advantage to niche builds that do not grant favorable boosts to abilities. All in all, I am impressed with Pathfinder 2e and have to say I enjoy this game very much and can see it becoming a staple of my gaming hobby, both as a player and game master. Do you agree with my assessment of Pathfinder 2e, or do you strongly disagree with it? What are some of the things you like and dislike about Pathfinder 2e? Let me know in the comments down below. If you feel I deserve it, leave a like and subscribe, and I will hope to see you here in the near future. Cheers, and may the rolls be with you.